U.S. attorney and Fox News contributor. Andy, great to see you. Court is adjourned for lunch and the former president's testimony. Your thoughts in this moment and where this is all going to go next?
Well, I really think this is a farce in the sense that the judge actually ruled against Trump before the trial even started. So I kind of chuckled today at hearing that he had turned to Trump's lawyer, Christopher Kise, and said, "Can you control your client?" Because the reason the judge has lost control of his courtroom is that he basically told Trump that he had lost before the so-called trial even started, and that the ensuing trial, which will go on for 2 months, or at least at that point in time, they said it would go on for 2 months. All it's about is how much he's going to let Tish James run up the score in terms of how much disgorgement Trump is going to be required to pay. So that communicated to Trump that there was no point in fighting this as a legal case because that ship has sailed. He knows he's lost. So Trump is doing exactly what you would expect somebody like Trump, who is running for public office, to do. He's trying to use this as an element of his campaign. There's no point in fighting it on legal grounds. He's fighting it on political grounds.
So I've got to say, Andy, I would hazard a guess that Judge Arthur Engoron has never had a witness like Donald Trump in his courtroom before. He admonished the defense counsel to, quote, control the witness, control their client, because, I mean, anybody who's ever had a conversation with Trump knows that he goes on and on and on and on, and he says what he wants to say, and then you get a word in, and then he goes on and on and on, and says what he wants to say. That's just who he is. Engoron doesn't like that in his courtroom. At one point, he said, "We're not here to listen to what he has to say. We're here to listen to him answer questions," to which Alina Habba said, "No, we are here to listen to what he has to say." I mean, it's like, as you pointed out, this judge is losing control of the courtroom, as it's very easy to do when Donald Trump sits down to say anything anywhere. But at the same time, I mean, he's kind of violating the basic court practices that the client has an opportunity, or the defendant has an opportunity, to defend themselves in a court of law. And the judge should be able to sit down long enough to listen to what the defendant has to say.
Right. Well, that's what should happen, John. But, you know, look, I don't think the New York system anymore is a legal system. It's really a political system that's masquerading as a legal system. The judge is an elected Democrat. Tish James is an elected Democrat who ran for office promising to use the power of the office against Trump. And a good judge who wanted to keep control of this proceeding would not have ruled on the ultimate issue on the eve of trial, because you would want at least withhold the ruling, and then Trump at least has an incentive to behave himself, because how he comports himself might affect what the outcome of the case is. But if you tell the guy before the case even starts that he's lost, what incentive does he have to behave himself or to treat it like it's anything other than a farce?
I mean, should he adapt to the courtroom, Andy?
I think at this point, his view of it is, this is politics, it's not law anymore, because I've already lost the legal case. And his best argument politically, and we're seeing this in the polls, is that the elected Democrats, and we're dealing in this case with elected Democrat prosecutor and elected Democrat judge, that they are using the powers of the public's law enforcement apparatus as a political weapon against somebody who they fear in the 2024 election. That's the story that he wants to run on, and they're giving him a ton of ammunition to run on it. And I think it's starting to get traction in the polls. It's pretty obvious that it is.
So Andy, why do you think Letitia James is appearing in court almost every day? I don't expect that she is going to the average criminal proceeding that the New York City courts take on day in and day out. She's specifically going to this one, though. And what do you think the reason for that might be? And, you know, the question kind of answers itself, really.
Yeah, well, you know, look, John, in the federal system, we have appointed prosecutors, and they have to be consented to by the Senate. So they go through some rigorous process. in order, at least ostensibly, to assure us that they're not going to use the powers of their office abusively. That's not what you have in New York. She's an elected Democrat, and she ran for office in a very blue state, promising to use her powers against Trump. And she, like Trump, is showing up at key moments of this proceeding because that's when the high-profile stuff happens. And when you, to the extent that you're using this as a political exercise, that's where you cash in on it. So that's what she's doing. It's why she brought the case in the first place. People should understand this is the case that the prosecutors decided not to bring. This investigation started as a federal investigation by prosecutors in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. They decided not to bring the case. It then went to the prosecutors in the district attorney's office. And even though they're quite anxious to do a case against Trump, they didn't think there was a case here because even though they're saying fraud, 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 there's no victims. But Tish James picked up the scraps that the prosecutors didn't want. And because it's a civil proceeding and she's got a monstrous statute in New York that she can operate under, she can go after him without proving fraud, without even proving that he had any deceptive intent, and put him out of business without being able to show even that there was a victim of any of this alleged fraud.
Reading directly from the AP write-up just from a few moments ago, saying the former president said, quote, "I think this is a political witch hunt and she should be ashamed of herself," talking about Letitia James, who obviously brought this case. This is the opposite of fraud, Trump said. The fraud is her. Apparently, James, as John mentioned, who's been in the courtroom every day, stared straight at the former president as he spoke and said those words.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.